Okay, so we were talking about uh, building and taking down and the variety of different things that fit under that category. So the next thing is that's a question as to whether or not you're allowed to do or not is to freeze or unfreeze water. Is that if you're changing the state of it, is that in some way considered building or something else that's forbidden on Shabbat? So he says the following thing: Mutar latet mayim letavniyot ulhakpiyam betah hakba'a shel mekarer chashmali ubefrat b'mei hakayitz hachamim shesh bazeh mishum oneg Shabbat. He says there's no problem to make ice. What do I mean by make ice? To take water, pour it into the containers that like the cube, the set up the cubes, the ice trays, and to put it into the freezer for the purpose of it turning into little bricks of ice, effectively. Not a problem because you're using that, in all likelihood, you're going to use it on Shabbat. Now, it's a good question, which you didn't get to yet, which is, what if I'm making, tons of ice and I'm setting it up so that it's going to be used for after Shabbat? So that could be a problem because there, it's not a question of whether what you're doing is allowed or not. It's whether what you're doing is preparing for after Shabbat. So that could be a problem, right? So let's say you have, let's say you normally on your Shabbat use 2 dozen, cubes of ice, right? And you notice when you go to your freezer on Shabbat morning, you used up all your ice already. And, you only need two trays. And you have 20 trays of ice. So whether or not you could set up 20 trays so that you could have ice for the week, you could see that being a problem. So, but that would have gone without saying, but we're just saying it anyway. Okay. מותר להשתמש בשבת בשקיות ניילון המיוחדות לעשיית קרח, ויש להיזהר שכאשר קושר הרצועות שבפי השקיות, לאחר שמילאם במים, שלא יקשור שני קשרים, אלא רק קשר עניבה, או בקשר אחד במקום שיכול. וכאשר רוצה להוציא הקרח מותר מן הדין לקרוע, אלא שעדיף שבזמן הקריאה לא יקפיד לקרוא במיתון לפי מידתה, כדי שלא לפגוש בזו של לידה, אלא יקרא בלי שום הקפדה. So this is something I've never seen, maybe one of you guys have, and that is bags for making ice instead of the trays. Anyone ever see that? I've never seen that.
No, just when you buy the ice, you get in the bag sometimes, but not.
Right, so that's not what he's talking about here. It doesn't seem like it. He said there's some kind of nylon plastic bags that are used to create ice. Never heard of it. Okay. So he says on that you can use them. He says, but be careful about following the rules of tying and ripping and all the other stuff that we talked about with other bags. So, okay. מותר בשבת לתת מאכלים להקפאה של מקרר חשמלי, כדי שלא יתקלקלו, ואין בזה איסור של הכנה משבת לחול. So he says, another thing that you can do is you can take, let's say I just got off the table, right? And it's either Friday night or Saturday lunch or even Saturday afternoon. And now I have leftovers, right? I have food that I don't intend on eating again on Shabbat, right? Can I put it in the refrigerator or the
What happens to the ice topic?
What's that?
What happens to the ice? Are we still talking about ice?
No, we're done with the ice. So the ice, basically, you could make ice, is basically what we're saying. And the presumption is, in most, even, I would even say, although we're going to talk about it, but I would say you could, most of us today don't make ice in that fashion. Most of us use most of the refrigerators that we have in our homes have electric ice makers. To leave those on a continual basis is not a problem. Even though some stuff is going to be made, it's on Shabbat and so on, you haven't touched anything, you haven't done anything, it's not, we're going to say for now, that's not a problem. So you don't have to shut off the ice maker or anything like that. And you can continue to make ice, no problem. especially if you're going to be
I'm
using it.
surprised. I'm surprised that we don't speak about ice melting. Like if you put it, a bucket of ice out, are you allowed to leave a bucket of ice out where it's going to obviously melt?
Right. Well, I think he actually does get to that, but yeah, he's going to get to that. But I was talking about building ice, making ice is not a problem. So here he's talking about putting things in the freezer or the fridge, right? Where you're gonna store things, and as we said, you shouldn't be making ice for the week, right? So can I put my Friday night leftovers in the fridge, knowing that I'm not eating them again? Could, but I'm not going to. Am I allowed to do that? So his answer is yes, you are, right? Because there's another factor at play here that we don't want to have happen, which is called bal tashchit. We don't want to destroy something. We don't want to waste things, right? So by putting things in the refrigerator, we're not going to have, like, imagine your Friday night table or your Saturday lunch. We don't eat everything. So imagine it's just sitting out and you can't put it away because you're not using it again. You'd have to throw it away. And we don't want to throw away food and valuable things. We don't want that to happen. So since we don't want that to happen, so we're allowed to put it in the refrigerator, even though technically that's kind of preparing for the weekday. On that, we're not gonna. That's a rabbinical decree. We're not gonna apply that rabbinical decree in a situation where you'd be costing not only money. It's not about the money. It's really about the waste. Which is a big deal. We don't want people wasting things. We don't want people ruining things. So that's the next thing. Okay. Mutar latet kubiyot kerach betoch kos mayim kedei l'shtot mayim karim. He says you can take ice cubes and put them into a cup of water in order that the water get cold. Ve'en kan isur shel nolad. And there's no concern that you're creating something new. What would be creating something new? You're creating water, right? You're turning ice cubes into water. Potentially, that's a problem, right? So it's not a problem if you're putting it into the water itself. וכן הדין באדם שהולך בימות הקיץ החמים לטיול אצל קרובי משפחתו, מותר לו לקחת עמו בקבוק מים מהפריזר שנהפך לקרח, ובאמצע הדרך יתהפך למים קרים על ידי שהקרח יופשיר. He says not only that, he says this sounds like your case, Joey, right? A lot of people, especially in Israel, what do? They take a bottle of water and they put it in the freezer, right? And they know they're going to go on a long trip, right? So what do? They put it in the freezer. They know they're going to go for a walk, right? Maybe a half hour, an hour, or something like that, and it's going to be hot. So they assume that the freezer, the ice will melt, and then this way they'll have it cold the whole time they're walking, as opposed to if they were to just take a regular bottle of water, for the hour that they're walking, the water will get warm very quickly, and then they won't have cold water. So he says that's not a problem. You're allowed to do that, even though, quote, you're creating water on Shabbat. It's not considered a problem. So that's not a big deal. Guys who are coming on, we're going to pray at 8, not 7:45 today. Amarkiv shinayim totavot. Mutar latet bahen avka mehadeket eshan el achich. Bemba ze isur shel boneh v'lo isur shel lash. So now he talks about another situation where potentially it could seem like it's a melacha, but he says it's not. He says people who wear dentures, so the teeth come in and out, and if they need some kind of something that helps it stick in place, some kind of gluey powder or something like that, he allows people to apply that and put that into their mouth, and there's no problem as a result of that. Okay. Pri hanikra kokos v'yesh b'tocho mayim mutar lasot bo b'Shabbat chor kedei lotzi et hamayim ve'en kan isur shel boneh. A coconut, right? Coconuts have a lot of water inside of them, but people like to drink the coconut water. So are you allowed to open a coconut and create a hole? It's kind of like a utensil or anything like that. No problem. You can puncture a hole in a coconut in order to take the water out of it. Because of it's for its purposes of eating or drinking water. Okay. Okay. Let's say you have so now another sort of related, but not directly related topic is fixing something like what? Let's say I have a door that's squeaking, a hinge or something like that. Can I put in some WD-40 or oil or something like that in order to prevent it from squeaking? And the answer is no, you cannot do that because that would be in the category of fixing something. And again, all this was talking about building, fixing, and so on. So that's the connection. So you can't do that element of fixing something on Shabbat, so therefore to use WD-40 would not be allowed. Okay. Okay. So again, like I said, a lot of these things are somewhat related but unrelated. So now we're going to talk about the last part of his topic. The way that he talks about it here is opening and closing boxes, right? Are you allowed to open and close boxes on Shabbat? Does that create some kind of utensil or something of that nature? So he says like this: Mutar leftach kufsaot shel sardinim b'Shabbat im lo patach meba'od yom v'tzarichu lahem avuro or avur orchim aval adif lefatcham be'erev Shabbat. So he's talking about a box of sardines. I assume you've seen a box of sardines. Sardines is like a utensil in and of itself, and it's like almost like a tray, and then the top, rolls itself back. Right? That's the way sardines work. We're going to start praying in 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So the sardine. So you might be concerned about opening a canister of sardines. He says you don't have to be concerned about opening this canister of sardines. He says you don't have to worry about it in terms of it being, creating a utensil. He says you could even, after you use you eat the sardines, you could actually use the utensil for something. I don't know, to put toothpicks in it or something like that. You'd be allowed to do that even on Shabbat. The reason why this is not building a utensil or anything like that is really that utensil was always already there. The fact that you're opening it is not creating a new utensil or anything like that. It's just a continuation of what its use is. קופסאות שימורים אין לפתחם לכתחילה בשבת, ומכל מקום המקל לפתחם בשבת שלא פתחם בערב שבת, הוא צריך להם עבור אורחים, יש להם ממש ישמח. So he's talking about other boxes that you open for whatever reason, for food or something like that. He says some people would not consider this creating a utensil on Shabbat, and therefore it shouldn't be done. So if you can have things opened on Shabbat, from before Shabbat, you should. So he's talking about crackers or Pringles or something of that nature. He says, but we'll say that, but he says, but you're allowed. Some people want to do this today. He says the problem was that people in previous times would reuse the boxes a lot. For us, we don't really reuse those boxes. We generally throw them out, and even if we do by chance reuse one of them, it's not the main way that we use it. So therefore, it's not really considered a problem. Okay, so really there's no problem with opening boxes and things like that of food before Shabbat. So on Shabbat. מותר לפתוח בשבת פחית משקה ואין בזה איסור משום עשיית כלי, לא משום סותר כלי, וכן אין בזה איסור משום עשיית פתח, וגם לא איסור של מחתך. Because you're allowed to open a soda can or a beer can or something like that. Says, someone might say you're creating a utensil, right? Right now you have something that's completely sealed. It has no openings or anything like that. And now by puncturing a hole, you've created a pitcher, a jug, or something like that. He says it's not a problem. It was already that way from beforehand. It was made to do that. So therefore, it's not a problem. Okay. אפשר לפתוח בשבת בקבוק מיץ ענבים או טמפו שסגור על ידי מכסה פח מהודק בצוואר הבקבוק בעת פתיחתו נפרדת טבעת מחלקו התחתון שמכסה. Because some people say, for the same reason, you can't open a, sorry, I'm just going to mute everyone, a lot of background. Some people say you can't open a soda bottle because by twisting off the cap and breaking that seal, you've created a new utensil. He says that's not a problem. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to tear off the foil wrapping that's around the bottle of wine or champagne. You're allowed to tear that off. It's not a problem of tearing or ripping or anything like that. So therefore, none of those things are a problem. You're allowed to do it. Two more things. מותר לפתוח בשבת שקיות חלב, וטוב שיפתח בשינוי שלא כדרך שפותח וחותך ביום חול, מקום עדיף יותר לפתוח מערב שבת. In Israel, they have milk bags. The milk very often comes in bags, not in containers. It says you're allowed to rip those bags open, and even though you're creating a spout, it's not a problem. And the last thing is you're allowed to open packages of matzah. No issue with opening packages or anything like that, as we've said a few times. So we're going to stop here and we're going to go into the tefillah section because it's 8 o'clock. So